So hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Have the Race Gone for the NES, the Nuke Shot Endurance Series 1 hour of Croix special event. That is of course part of what's known as the Season 4.5 special events. Those are of course in between Seasons 4 and 5. I am, for tonight, your host with the most, DirtenDK. And we're watching the Jag, the TVR Jag of the Rebellion Jag of GRM Bandit making his way around. It's been a good while. It's been 2 weeks since we last had NES action. Of course, it was Schosse taking the victory at the 1 hour of Nürburgring when we had the Green Hell Sunday special. And, of course, a very good evening to everyone who has joined us already. Evening to Nilse, Ethan, Hippiehead, and Bambi as well. Nice to see you all. Nice to see you tuning in so rapidly after throwing up the live stream. And, of course, to our trusted mod, that's also the series organizer here, Nuke Shot Motorsports. The best series. But it most certainly is back, and we're looking at a fine list of contenders here today. A nice lineup of regular heads from the NES, paired with some outsiders, dare I say. A couple of them who haven't made it onto the track yet, but of course running in the Aston Martin V12 Vantage GT3 car. It's Martin Vijfhuizen with his distinctive cam hatch livery. He's running alongside teammate John for Games. And a nice little distinction between the two cars with the bright or very fluorescent yellow on the car of the Aston Martin, of course, Ethan. How that managed to sail right underneath my head, I don't even know. We have Armored Core. He's here in the Peugeot Vision Gran Turismo Group 3 car, and he really feels the pressure of being on camera. Obviously, we have Splurge the second, stuck in pit. Oh, now we now we good. Anyway, Splurge in the McLaren F1 GTR that was recently added in an update. Joe of the Fire, who just took the championship in the TSR GT 300 series, he's back in the Nuke Shot Motorsports Have the Race Gone Ford GT. He was a contender at the Nürburgring, but I think this track will fit the characteristics of the Ford GT even better. It's the long layout here at Croix, an interesting circuit indeed. Of course, placed in imaginary France, so we're gonna have a hard time visiting it in real life. But certainly an interesting circuit. 3 layouts of differentiating lengths. All of them are pretty long. The longest here are very long indeed, and that of course presents a multitude of challenges for the drivers. I'm gonna have to rejoin the lobby because of this getting stuck in the pit view bug. But do enjoy the wonderful Muzak, broadcast Muzak featured in GT Sport for a moment or two here. We probably won't have the chance for too long. I imagine it would change here. Sadly indeed. France is very real, Tron, but the place isn't real in France. So just like imaginary Croatia and indeed also imaginary Japan, we have imaginary France here. Because France is no longer France. Now the question is if qualifying has just gone live. I could imagine it would be right on time. It is 20 minutes to 8, which means it's right about time to get the qualifying started. And it's a good time also to touch upon the qualifying format that we'll be using here tonight. It's kind of a Super Bowl one-shot format with the drivers being called out in groups of 5. So here the first group being called out, it's Gugas, Gentleman Racing, John for Games, Mika, and was that Wake CU the last one? It was indeed Wake CU. Look at that nudging around. Well, we are having some kind of issues here with actually getting to view anything. There is Gugas on track. Oh, there are some. Oh, we're only seeing 9. I have to say this, so I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but it seems we have some kind of lobby issues here. So of course the first 4 drivers, well, we're seeing them. The thing is, are we seeing all who's in the lobby? Currently 12. So that would be all well and good in the end. Okay, I suppose. I guess it's not going to be a problem with the stuck in pit bug later in the race. That's only going to be here for qualifying, and since we're not going to be seeing people jump off track once they've set their time, I guess all is fine. Had me worried for a moment, but of course a very good evening to everybody just tuning in at the moment. We are just getting started with qualifying here for the 1 hour of St. Croix, and with a bit of it's not really shaped like a croissant, even though if you turn it around, it's very much croissant. It's quite amusing, I think. Anyways, the warm-up lap is indeed a warm one. I would suggest it probably is warm, but it's a long one indeed. And watching young Dutchman Mika in the Rebellion TVR Jag. Ben Doyle, can anyone join this lobby? Sadly, no. We're running a registration format that is a thread on GT Planet. And I wouldn't mind actually sharing the thread if you'd like to sign up, because there's a line of special events coming up over the next couple of weeks. And anyways, that's all fine and well, Tron. That's how it is. We don't want to get in the way of anything, but as always, nice to see you. So Gugas, the Portuguese, in his Ford GT, the Martini prototype racing team. Don't know why it's a prototype, but that's the name of the team. Anyways, Gugas, first one to enter his hot lap, his only shot. So it's about finding that right balance between out and still making it all the way around in one piece. And the length of the layout here also makes it difficult to get into any kind of rhythm because it's just so long between every visit to the other end of the track, so to say. Portuguese. So let's see, that might be caught up as spam. I hope not. If it is as marked as spam for you in chat, please let me know. I'll direct you to it in some other way. But that is the... Oh, that's just the entire... Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong link. Anyway, Google's still going around, and I'm having to do a little bit of multitasking here. There it is. So as mentioned before, it's Gugas in the Ford GT. He's looking clean and on point. A pretty strong hot lapper, where we've seen Gugas struggle at least over the last season in the NES, and at least over the last 2 seasons in the NES, is more with the long run consistency. And he, when he has put together a couple of clean races, the performances has been good indeed. We have Gentleman Racing in his trusted old 911 RSR. A slightly different livery, a very nice job on that one, I have to say. Funky, and with a little bit of respect paying to Charlie Whiting, rest in peace. As mentioned also earlier, John for Games in the Cam Hatch Reaver Racing Jag, and of course that's what I'm used to saying from the TSR. They're running Aston Martins here, Aston Martin, and as you see, he's running with his indicator lights on, and you see that big scrub to the front of the car. So surely not the qualifying session that John for Games would have been looking for. Gugas has set in his time. It's a 3 minutes, 6 seconds and 5/10, almost 6, very close indeed. And it seems at the moment that Gentleman Racing is on his way to bettering that time. Let's see on his line. Oh, he's 7/10 clear almost at the moment. So good going here for the American. Evening to the Bandito as well. Nice to see you in chat. And the best of luck for the race. It's of course GRM Bandit, Robert Smith. Here is Gentleman Racing across the line with a 3:05.6. There's John for Games. Well, he's just entering his hot lap now. And still with damage, I suppose. Mika. Certainly a little strange. Mika's a little bit off the pace, it seems, as well. He's 2.5 seconds down on the lap set by Gentleman Racing. And Wakes you, he's just... he's found no luck at all, it seems, with this Porsche 911. Now he seems to be waking up. Pun not really intended, though. Oh, it's a good bit of warp speeding, I'm afraid, once more from the Belgian. What we have seen before, I think some of the connection issues that we were experiencing before might be having something to do with this. So the Cool Whip warp speed Porsche is back. Look at we haven't really seen. Now it's very slow speeding. That means that some incredible teleportationing will be going on soon from the Porsche here. And anyway, regarding Aston Martin, congratulations to Aston Martin with winning the manufacturer's trophy at the World Tour event at Paris yesterday. And I had to say it was good fun watching these events with the amount of drivers that were participating in the IGTL as well. Feel like it was quite a number of, well, to a certain degree, familiar faces. And now we're waiting for the next batch of drivers to be released. John for Games, of course, is taking it literally a bit too far indeed. Since there is only one lap allowed. So who are next? It's Armored Core. He's on his out lap. It's Bu Fushidara, a newcomer to the series, running the Mercedes AMG GT3 car. And a very distinctive Parmala livery as well. We have Jim out this time around in his best water technology. Also with a good bit of respect paid to Charlie. And of course it's a Ford GT. Joe of the Fire also let loose the fastest driver in qualifying, it has to be said. So we'll have to see whether he can repeat the feat here in practice. And let's see if he can repeat it here in qualifying to take pole position indeed. Good evening to everyone who's joined us here as we are well underway with qualifying as opposed to last time around. Evening to Emilius, evening to Round Robbins as well. Nice to see you, mate. So let's go on board with the witty professor. One of the quicker Padawans, of course. Oh, that looks to be a good amount of fuel burning going on from Joe of the Fire. Oh, as he almost loses it. And don't do that. And then, of course, as mentioned before, GRM Bandit, the second of the Rebellion TVR Jags, which there are indeed two of. The other one run by young Dutchman Mika. Evening to Splurge. Yeah, do throw it at the walls. And Wake commenting on the fact that that was far from a perfect qualifying display from him. And I think we can all agree to that as well. And VRS Dick joining us quickly before having to leave. Well, I'm sad you have to leave, but it's always a pleasure having you along. Of course, VRS Dick, one of the organizers of the TSR series, who've, alongside the NES, has brought us the main bulk of our content here on the channel, and of course for that we are grateful. And in turn, the racing we've seen both in the NES in the 4th season and of course also in the TSR series, and that's been everything from the M3 World Tour to the Multi GT and its related Japanese GT series. And I can say that that there's also a Super Formula series coming up, organized by TSR, and Grid's almost, I think it is actually full already, but it's gonna be an interesting one. Armored Core on a very good lap. He's made his way through the first sector now. He's on a purple time, and he's up on the time set by Gentleman Racing by 0.6 of a second already. So the Lando Norris of the NES running strongly in that Peugeot indeed. The Baguette factor is strong with that livery indeed as well. And he seems to be quite dialed in He's been running well in that car specifically before, so I do have high expectations. And it is a competitive car when you can apply a setup to it. It's a Fushidara. And it's a long name to say every time. It's probably just gonna be Fushidara, which also sounds kind of nice. I like names that sound good. No surprise. Performance. Oh yeah, of course. Cool whip. And Stella, the half the race dog, has indeed also decided to join the party here. She at times likes to make herself known and announced. I apologize to any headphone viewers out there. And we will not be responsible for any damage we cause to your ears. As I'm desperately trying to calm the dog, but she's in no mood to be calmed now. She's left and is barking from the other room just as well. So let's see. I think they're coming up to the line. It's getting close up to the final corner here for Armored Core. And I think it is going to be a provisional pole time, but we haven't really seen the run from Joe of the Fire. And we are, of course, going to pick up on that as they come through the final parts of the circuit here. Dog, that's Swedish. And here is Armored Core, 5 seconds. 5 seconds, is that even possible? It's a 3:00.5. That's a probably fast time from Armored Core. Joe of the Fire, let's see what he will be capable of in the Ford GT. Stella, tack. Just a second, ladies and gentlemen. So as I return, it's just about gonna be a pole position time from Joe of the Fire, beating Armored Core by half a second and breaking underneath the 3-minute marker. That's a brilliant lap from the witty professor. So notch off the American for a provisional pole time. Let's see the rest of the field. Fushidara 6th has pushed Mika down into 7th position now. Jim also with a good time so far in 3rd here. So looking pretty well indeed. John for Games and Wake CU, of course, having their fair share of problems. And the dog just barks every time every time somebody, or not every time, but here in the evening when my girlfriend's at work, she expects her to get home any minute, I guess. So every time someone's in the hallway, she gets hugely excited as well. And it's good fun indeed. So we're waiting for the last group of drivers, and that's the last 3 qualifiers. It's Off Apple, it's Martin Fairperson, and it's Splurge the second, also a returning face who took part in the NES quite some time ago, and in the first showing of the McLaren F1 GTR. And just listen to the roar of that BMW V12. What a glorious sound indeed. And it is, of course, the Radish himself who probably should get on track at the moment. perhaps off for a bit of as he's getting ordered by the witty professor to get moving. Martin Pfeifferson in the Aston. Oh, doing a big slide. Was that for the cameras, or was it maybe an attempt to warm up the rear tires? And let's see if we will have any warp speed issues for Martin. Fabel has now also joined the track in his Nookshot Motorsports Toyota FT1, and he'll be running for this special event. And it is so with the Nookshot special events that there isn't really a championship. It's just a series of events held every 2 weeks, and we're gonna have some interesting racing also coming up with the NES Eco Challenge, which, as the name suggests, it's of course a fuel-saving challenge. Let's go on board with Splurge to. Listen to that. It's well made, and the crackle, the banging and crackling. Sem Vettel joining us, but that's a little bit late. I guess he can pretty much just make his qualifying lap. Splurge still warming up the tires, as we saw Martin also doing before. But anyway, I was mentioning the forthcoming special events, and besides that NES Eco Challenge event, we've got Group 4 races from Willow Springs and Bathurst coming up. We've got Toyota versus Porsche Multi-Class Challenge coming up, so Group 3 and Group 1, which will be an interesting one indeed. We will have we'll have the NES Classic featuring liveries from series gone by for the nostalgic NES fans out there. And plenty of good stuff. Of course, also the Audi TT Cup organized by the Automotive Mayhem, also featuring in not too long the first edition of that. The first real edition, so to say. Anyway, Outlaps is a done business for the last 3 of the qualifying. That surely wasn't meant. Apple, you scrub. Apple showing his skills as a race organizer by accidentally hitting the start button early. I think Trouts has joined us as well. Beautiful. And Emilius, I've posted the page for the special event. The special event page from GT Planet. I'll gladly post it again so you can check it out, because to be honest, I actually don't remember. Perfection indeed it is. Phenomenal race. And the 1 hour of St. Croix is not yet off. Oh, well played, Apple. The croissant. If they had made it look more like I mean, it could look like a very abstract croissant, perhaps a croissant that's been taking a bite or two of the top. And yeah, Apple, you pretty much had one job. So we, I guess, have the race order. We have the qualifying order, I hope, for places 1 to 10, and we'll have an extra warm-up lap, an extra out lap for the last 4 drivers. Also, of course, means that Sem Vettel will be lucky and have a chance to qualify. And we'll be issues aside, we'll be getting right back into the thick of it with the Martin 5000 and an extra car now, of course, added to that fourth group. Oh, Martin, that's not what you were supposed to do. And clever, such a short way into the... See, this is also nice, yeah. I'll have to see if, because that's one thing I didn't do last time out, is actually just deleting the cache data, but I'm afraid it won't fix the issues, and I'm afraid. So, in other bad news, my otherwise pretty newly acquired PC has also died upon me, and it's like completely died. It won't even freshly install Windows or do anything. I'm suspecting that the hard drive is dead somehow. So I was just getting into Assetto Corsa. I was just getting into enjoying that game. My pedals then has been causing issues. I've got that fixed and was running for about 10 minutes and then the computer died. The fuel range of the F1 GTR Emilius is to me very much an unknown because I haven't seen it in action yet at all. We got turn names for the Croissant. Well, there's a lot of them, but no, we have not got turn names for the Croissant. I guess partly because they're all a little alike. There are so many 90-degree bends, and most of them are in a forest, and then there's a bridge, and then there's a bit of a section that's on the road, but from there on to making up some... I mean, on Dragon Trail Gardens we have the Techno Quad, because it's an apex corner with loud banging techno music from the middle. That kind of makes itself up. The Spaghetti Bar from Maggiore also kind of made itself up. If anyone has good corner names for this circuit, of course, feel free to throw them right in there. So second attempt at getting qualifying to work. Martin 5000 will be first to start his lap in the Aston Martin. I have to thank Ethan for that one, it's brilliant indeed. There he goes off on his lap. And if I recall correctly, the pole position time set by Joe of the Fire was a 2 minutes 59.9 something, so it was in the very high 59s, but indeed right and just above or under the 3-minute mark. To be fair, I don't think we're expecting Martin 5000 to get that far or to get that swiftly around here, but well, you never know. Splurge, of course, also having started his lap, and same should be true for Off Apple, but it isn't. It isn't. He's still got a couple of turns to go. The minimap tells me. Brazil in here. Well, what a pleasure, Patricia. Welcome to Have the Race Gone. You are watching the Nuke Shot Endurance Series, 1 hour of St. Croix. We are finishing the qualifying session after a little bit of trouble and issues, just having the last 3 drivers set the times. Of course, qualifying here is a one-shot. So Splurge looking pretty dialed in the very nice addition to the game that is the McLaren F1 GTR. Oh, as he gets very loose on that exit though. A bit too wide and onto the grass, and that'll lose him some costly time in the end. Joining up with Martin Fabersen, who's about halfway around the track. He's turning onto the bridge. And in the layout that's mostly used, I'd say, you turn onto the bridge from the other side, and you also turn left down here instead. That's for one of the other layouts. As earlier mentioned, there is 3 layouts of this track. As Bandito tells us, Apple has a 2.1 second penalty. So he might be able to scrub some of it off, but it's certainly not optimal for a qualifying lap either, so we'd have to say. And he's picked it up early on as well. Here we are beginning to see some of the warp speeding, I'm afraid, from Martin's car. So yet again, a little bit of lag, only just at the moment. And let's see what the time's gonna be. Oh, it's gonna be a pretty fast one. Oh, he gets very, very close actually to a pole position time in the end. Martin Fabersen just over the 3-minute mark. He's just about a 1/10 away from Joe of the Fire, and not even, I think that's actually under a 1/10 of a second. Evening to CJ, who's and everyone else who's joined us. We're just finishing up qualifying here. Let's see. Splurge the second. What will it be for him? It's gonna be just over the 3 minutes as well in the F1 GTR. And as I never really got around to talking too much about before, but it seems like a bit of an odd decision to throw it in Group 3, I'd say. Of course, any other fate would be Group X, and that also would be a shame, because in this way it stays much more relevant in the game, I guess. And I guess they have made it work. Stat-wise, it looks to be pretty close to the Ford GT LM Spec 2. Anyways, off Apple here also finishing his lap. But it looks he's going to be somewhat down the running order. And how many in the lobby, CJ? For me, well, I have 15 in the lobby, but most spectating and 6 on track. And are those two really on track? Because they were on track. Nice. PD, I love you. And all the connection issues and all the weird little bugs that you bring along in every update. Evening to the gaming manatee. I'd like to see how that looks breaking out the G29, but go for it. Of course, it's going to be a little late for this particular event, but if you want to take part in any of the other NES events, or in turn in the NES series when Season 5 starts as a whole, do feel free. It's free to join. It's not free to join this particular race, but it's free to join the series. We've got a link to the thread on GT Planet. It's right there for anyone who wishes to sign up for any of the remaining special events, and there will be a thread for Season 5 once we are getting closer to the 5th season. And we are really having some issues actually getting to see anyone here. And this time we are allowed to look at cars for once. going around here as Wake CU. I wouldn't imagine that to be lagging gentleman racing in the Porsche 911. Of course, we don't know. We don't really know the running order in qualifying because I didn't take a screenshot, and to be honest, I don't really remember either, since we had that bit of of a wrong one from Apple pressing start as we were getting ready. But we are having the grid is being set, and we are getting ready to race here. We're getting ready for the off, and interestingly, we're having a grid start for these races here, for the special event races, at least for this one, and that's that always brings the opportunity for loads of chaos. And it was indeed Joe of the Fire on pole position. Then it was quite close, if I recall correctly, between Armored Core and Martin Fagersen, but I do believe it's Martin Fagersen in second. I think it is Armored Core in third. And then behind that it could very well be Splurge in fourth position, but from there on I'm at a loss, I have to say. And if I know any Brazilian riders, well, not really, but Brazilian drivers, well, in real life I know a couple. I think we all do. We don't have any participating in the series here. The closest we come to a Brazilian driver in the NES is our Portuguese friend Gugas. And CJ has also joined, so we have a full grid, I think, in the end. It seems we're also able to see everyone in the lobby, so that's just nice. Evening to Tomka. Stella once more giving a bit of barky barks. Of course, we're not trying to keep down the. Oh, we're trying to keep down the barking as much as possible. Well, Emilius, I'm quite sure we're going to be able to edit the liveries on the Super Formula cars. Otherwise, it's going to be a little boring, I guess, because they both look quite similar in the video. It's just black carbon, pretty much. So I think they expect us to... the grid has been set. That's nice to hear. I think they expect us to come up with all sorts of liveries for the Super Formula car, indeed. And it's gonna be a great feature to the game. The Formula 1 cars in the game hasn't really gotten off to... Well, the Lewis Hamilton Mercedes didn't get off to a great start with its issues with the controllability and all that sorts of stuff. But these Japanese Super Formula machines, I am predicting them to go down like hot butter on bread, indeed. We're getting very close to race start, and this time around the grid has been set. We'll have Joe of the Fire in the Ford GT starting on pole position. And let's just go through the racing regulations as well. If my lovely little tablet will allow me to access them. But of course, no boost. We're running heavy damage. We're running tire wear and fuel consumption times 3 and times 2. And obviously grip reduction set to real and all that stuff. Balance of performance is on, and tuning is on as well. So that should be that covered. And with that said, we are getting ready to race, ladies and gentlemen. Right about now, it is off time. It's go time for the 1 hour of St. Croix, the Nuke Shot Endurance Series special event. Joe of the Fire on pole position in front of Martin Pfeiffersen, as mentioned before. Then it is Armored Core Splurge the second. Then Jim in the other 4 GT, Gentleman Racing, Off Apple, GRM Bandit, Gugas, Fushidara, Mika, WakeCU, and just didn't get any further. And of course, as mentioned before, it is a standing start, so once the lights go green, it is very much off, and it's the old way with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lights are on, and when they go off, I guess there it's green, green, green for the 1 hour of St. Croix. And I think someone got a flying start that looks like Jim, and Martin getting a little bit swamped. Joe of the Fire and Splurge the second, side by side through the first corner, and there's a big shunt to the back of affairs there with WakeCU. Oh, that might be Warp Speed Wake indeed. Let's have to see about that. Joe of the Fire leading the punch, but it's very close indeed, and there's a little bit of RG-barging in between 2 of the cars down the order. I think that might have been between Jim and Armored Core, who's now down in 5th position. Then Off Apple 6th, it's Guga 7th, Fushidara in 8th. John for Games, Semfettel, GRM Bandit, and CJ. And a lot of action also going on further down the order with the Olympiacos machine of the Mad Greek starting last and now being on a charge through the field indeed. Evening to Hunty, nice to see you. Always a pleasure to have to muscle his way around the outside, and it succeeds in doing so. Really taking advantage of the cornering capabilities of the Beetle Group 3 car, the Mad Bug of the Mad Greek indeed. Is Mika having a terrible start to his race? What has happened to WakeCU? That's also looking like a bad amount of lag. Joe of the Fire now leading Splurge by 2 seconds. So the Witty Professor looking very good indeed. And there's a tight scrap as Splurge picks up a 3.9 second penalty, I think, for cutting. And now I think it's Armored Core looking to move up. He's side by side with Martin Pfeiffersen. I think the Dutchman is going to be surviving this round. I was about to say defending well on the inside, but look at the grunt of the Peugeot. And Armored Core is going to have the inside for the next right-hander at the end of the bridge here. Martin lets him go first time around, then tries to get the exit. Then Splurge gets very, very shabby out from the bridge, and that gives Martin the opportunity to send it right back. That's brilliant stuff indeed. Reclaiming 3rd position, and now I think he's going to claim 2nd as well. What a brilliant couple of passes there from the Dutchman, Martin Pfeiffersen. Let's just have another look as Armored Core went a little wide, and then all of a sudden he saw his opportunity to send it up the inside, and a little bit of crunching there as someone is making contact with the outside wall. Joe of the Fire is just pulling away from that battle in behind, and he's already 4.5 seconds clear. Four and a half seconds. I'd say you have to be wary of giving the Witty Professor such an advantage, because he's known for just pulling them home. CJ having to contend with the entire field, and given that it is an hour of racing, he will of course be up there, I think, come the end of affairs. It's Off Apple running 5th in the Nuke Shot Motorsports Toyota FT1. And Devon Toms, it's by using a keyboard. connected in the USB port of the PS4, and by going into the options down here on Switch keyboards to on, then you unlock some cool features like the replays and that little box of information and other stuff as well. So Off Apple putting the pressure onto Splurge at the moment. Don't know if I was expecting this. Splurge not really having gotten rid of the entire penalty from before, and he's lost a big load of time up to Martin Faversen in Armored Core, and he might have damage to the car. That's actually no, he doesn't. He doesn't have damage. He's running the racing mediums at the moment. So Splurge and Off Apple. Well, Splurge still defending well, but he's lost touch with Armored Core and with Martin indeed. And Jim in 6th position at the moment in his Ford GT, running pretty well, and Guga's getting sketchy onto the bridge, but managing to keep it under control. Now Jim really closing up to Off Apple, and he's going to be a contender for 5th position, and Off Apple is going to have something else to deal with now. Splurge is flying up ahead. CJ is still running in 8th position, but also closing up to Gugas. Further down here in the Lexus RCF, it is of course Sam Vettel. Fushidara running 10th in the AMG GT3, in 11th in one of the Rebellion TVR Jags. It's the Bandito Dorito himself with a warp speed wake. I'm glad this nickname already is already a thing before this race, because we'll be seeing some more of that later on. Nice livery, cool whip. John for Games in 13th with Mika in 14th at the moment. But Joe of the Fire, he's nursing that 4.5 second advantage. He's lost a little bit of it, but it's just a couple of tenths down to Martin Faversen. So let's just have a look tire-wise, because I don't really know what they're running yet. We see Joe, Martin on the softs, Armored Core on the super softs, because he does have some damage. Then Splurge on the mediums. Good job actually keeping up there. Off Apple now also running with some damage to his car. Racing Soft seems to be the tire of choice for the top runners. Armored Core, interestingly, think he can make the super soft last. Joe of the Fire still losing a little bit of time down to Martin. He's really on a charge in 2nd position. Of course, he hasn't lost visual contact with Joe of the Fire in any way, and he's on a best lap, even though, and he's already set a lap actually. Martin Faversen with a lap in the 2:59s already, and that's actually a faster lap than what Joe of the Fire put in qualifying. So let's not discount the man from 5 houses, the town in Holland with 7 houses as it is. Armored Core seemingly suffering from that damage. He's getting marooned on the island because he's still up on pace compared to Splurge the second. And now I think we're seeing the move materialize from Jim, who's going to be claiming 5th position from Off Apple without any sort of big drama there as they cross the bridge. And that long straight, it gives plenty of space for slipstream overtaking. It's the lowest running of the 4 GTs. It's Gugas in 7th. It's Sam Vettel 8th. He's gotten the better of CJ. Or what's happened to CJ? Because CJ is down into 9th position. And he's gotten some heavy damage indeed. So suspension damage to both left wheels and aero damage to his rear as well. That's a terrible luck for CJ. It's gonna be a real stick in the wheel in CJ's last to first challenge, which doesn't seem to be going fantastically well at the moment. As even before pit stops and anything, he's 29 seconds down on Joe of the Fire. Still leading Martin Faithfusen and Armored Core at the top of affairs. Here behind CJ is Bandit, Wake, John for Games, and Mika. Let's go back with the leaders, because it seems to have stabilized a little now. Joe of the Fire having pulled back a couple of tenths on Martin Faithfusen. And Martin in turns managed to pick up a 1.8 second penalty. So I think he's had a little bit of an off, or he might have had a corner cut. That's really hard to say. And Armored Core, bad luck for him to get that damage, because he's bleeding time to the leaders now. He's almost 10 seconds down on Joe of the Fire. He was up there with him. And he was expecting, I think, to be up there running with him pace-wise here. 10 minutes of racing gone. And the race, I was just about to say, has settled into somewhat of a rhythm, as both Jim and Off Apple haven't gotten past Splurge the second. And, Splurge having a big moment with his left tires and the gravel there around that fast left-hander. So Jim and Apple getting past Splurge, but of course Splurge on a wholly different strategy. And from what we could see on CJ's car, well, he'd been using around a third of a tank of fuel to do 3 laps. Which means it's 9 laps on an entire tank, which means it should be possible to just around one-stop the McLaren on the medium tires, which could very well in turn be what Splurge is aiming to do, as he's running 6th at the moment. Oh, it's Apple getting sketchy as they are coming off the bridge. And it is a car known for having a loose back end, the Toyota FT1. But if it can be tamed, which should be possible here with the setups on, it is a very fast and competitive car indeed, as we've seen before. So Off Apple now losing touch a little bit with Jim. Jim running well in his Ford GT up into 4th at the moment. Splurge is now pitting in, as well as Sam Vettel. So drivers in both 7th and 8th position pitting in. Or that'll be effectively, because Gugas is up into 6th with this round of pit stops. And Fushidara will be getting past as well, I think. So it looks it's gonna be close. Yep, there he goes. Fushidara up into P7, Sam Vettel comes out P9, Splurge of course P8. And sad to hear about your contact with whoever it was there at the start of the race to Gentleman Racing. We didn't really catch what happened, but poor luck nevertheless, and always a shame, and especially a shame to see you get hit by such bad luck, because you just live up to the name indeed. Joe of the Fire now down to 3.2 seconds of advantage, down to Martin in 2nd position. So by no means is it over. We've been running for just under 15 minutes now, so about quarter of the race gone. So I'd say we'd be looking at about 20 laps of racing here at the end. Joe of the Fire still bleeding a little bit of time. A looks very fast in behind there, Martin Favors. Let's go on board with the Dutchman, who's actually also managed to get rid of most of his penalty, while at the same time really gaining ground on Joe of the Fire in front. I think it'll be really interesting to see, because it certainly seems like Joe was faster on his initial run on those opening couple of laps, and then the pace balance might have something to do with the tire wear, of course, of these two cars, that the Aston is just easier on the tires, and that Martin is able to keep a faster pace over longer periods of time. It seems like he's really going at it at the moment. It's down to 2.8 seconds now, so underneath 3 seconds for the first time in quite a bit of time indeed since the opening of the race. Oh, I think Splurge has had some bad luck here. As he says he's sorry for something. That's something that happened prior to what we can catch with the replay. 2.7 seconds, still just losing time, and Armored Core with the damage still running. But he's still also bleeding time, but in turn he's not bleeding time to the drivers behind him, only the two drivers in front. So seemingly it could be that it's not really such a big problem here. Off Apple pitting in now. Gugas also pitting in. Off Apple from Supersoft. Gugas, I'm sorry, from the regular soft compounds. And Emilius, the replays, well, you set a replay marker with the Z or Z button, set, I guess it is, and then on buttons X, C, and V you activate, and with from shorter to longer clips. Shortest clip is X, and the longest clip is V, and it's only possible when watching an actual race, so you can't do it in lobbies or in practice. And that's about it. And another thing is that for a good bit of time it wasn't working in the game, and then and it's quite some time ago now, but I guess it's 3 or 4 updates ago that they fixed it, and all of a sudden it was working again. And it is a very nice feature indeed. CJ making his way up through these. He's getting very muscly there with Sam Vettel. Let's have another look at that. As we're talking about the replay, we get a chance to actually to use it here. CJ coming from 8th position. Sam Vettel, must be said, he goes very wide. CJ decides to send it, and I think it's more a case of Sam Vettel turning into CJ now. CJ, though, hadn't gotten a penalty of 1.3 seconds. Joe of the Fire, he's keeping it alive, but it's underneath 2 seconds now, so there's a big pace advantage for Martin Faversen in that Aston Martin, down in 2nd position now, but he's charging on the Dutchman. He's really trying to bring to life the battle for the lead here at the 1 hour of St. Croix. So Jim, having yet to pitting in before him was off Apple, might be onto some kind of undercut. But in turn it also might turn out that Apple's pit stop was a couple of minutes early, and that's just about, I guess, 1 lap if he were to go for a 2-stop at least. Now CJ and Splurge getting on it heavy. I can see them changing positions here. Let's just rejoin the battle. We can catch up to the replay in a moment's time, because still a lot of action going on here. As it's now Splurge bringing the challenge to CJ, who somehow finds himself in 5th position at the moment. Of course, having been in for a very early pit stop that will skewer and upset his strategy. And the Mad Greek, however, so doing well to find himself in 5th position here, as we are closing into the first 20 minutes of racing being done here. Splurge getting a little bit touchy with the wall on the outside of the final corner. It allows off Apple to jump up into 6th position, but is it only going to be for a short time as Splurge sends it right back up the inside to reclaim 6th? Strong job from Splurge. And now let's catch up with the replay from before as they came onto it. It's CJ now running 6th at the moment here. And it seems he's just gonna do... it's gonna be an outside send coming off the bridge. Oh, just Splurge getting very twitchy on the exit of the S's there, the post-bridge S's, and still close battle. He's having his work cut out on the medium compound. Splurge really seeing struggling with his tires, with the grip. So Splurge still defending from off Apple. And didn't it... I might have had a connection issue, a small internet fallout, but yeah, it's activated by C on the keyboard with the replay function, and then... or it's set... You set a marker on C, and then it's activated on X, C, and V, of course. Splurge, 6th position, battling away with off Apple. Not the first time we've seen these two going at it, but Apple has actually managed to catch up after his pit stop. So it seems that the medium tire strategy isn't necessarily working out perfectly for Splurge, at least not at the moment. In 8th position, it's Sem Vettel. In 9th, as we're watching here, is Gugas. In the warp speed Porsche of WakeCU, as we just saw, flying through the camera and teleporting in right behind Gugas here is, of course, WakeCU with its big connection issues. GRM Bandit 11th. It's Fushidara now 12th in front of Mika and John for Games. And of course, it should be said, if you like what we do here at Half the Race Gone, do click the like button, and if you haven't already, also very much feel free to subscribe to stay in touch with what we do here on the channel, and don't forget the bell icon to get the notification as well. Unless you, of course, really don't want the notification, then don't hit it. Joe of the Fire now down to 1.3 seconds, so it's getting close. It's getting nail-bitingly close. And to be honest, I wasn't really expecting this. I think when I saw 4.5 seconds on lap 2 as an advantage for Joe of the Fire, it could have been game over. Martin Pfeiffersen, though, really wants it another way. He is chasing along, and he's really got the pace in his Aston Martin. But he's been picking up a couple of penalties as well. Oh, Martin Pfeiffersen, is that warp speeding? Or was that a that was a genuine bonking crash into the wall. Martin Pfeiffersen has really binned it there. Look, as he just loses it over the inside curve. He's got engine damage. Big F's out for the leading contender. Martin Pfeiffersen was really putting on the pressure to keep the pressure on to Joe of the Fire. Now he's gonna be falling way down the order, and he's got the best part of a lap to do with engine damage. That's gonna cost him a minute almost, if that can even do so. He's gonna be way down the order. Poor luck for Martin Pfeiffersen in the Cam Hatch Riva Racing Aston Martin. He was certainly hoping for better, but that's how it is when you push that extra bit. and might be a little bit of the famous overtaking horniness that kicked in on Martin. He really wanted to get the better of Joe of the Fire, but luckily for Martin, it wasn't as bad as it seemed when first I saw the crash, as to how far he actually had left of the track, because he's already at the pits. So he isn't going to be losing that much, but of course now he has another pit stop to do. And Armored Core pits in as well. Armored Core in to get his damage fixed. Yet another side comment from my sidekick Stella, the Have the Race dog. Seems to have found something interesting in the backyard. So let's see where Martin exits the pit, because seemingly he has a big gap. Both him and Armored Core with big gaps down to Jim. But he's gonna be close now. He's gonna be close to both of them. You could also say that it's luckily for both Martin and Armored Core. Armored Core's been running with damage for a long time. Martin, well, it was very close to the half the race gone marker, just 4.5 minutes away. So if he was aiming for one stop, even on the softs, well, it's almost still possible for him. Here is Jim off Apple, now running 5th. It's Semfettel up into 6th position, Gugas in 7th, Splurge down into 8th, and CJ in 9th position, running way down now. Might just have had a pit stop there on the last lap, on lap 8, I think. So lap 9 here could be his first flyer. It's possible indeed, but he's a long way down. The Mad Greek here. And is Wake CU in front or behind of him? I have no clue. Because he's all over the place with this crazy lag. Joe of the Fire once more now with a commanding advantage of 48 seconds. Of course, the Witty Professor has yet to pit, but he's one of the only drivers who hasn't had his strategy ruined by being involved in some kind of incident, and it's really paying dividends. And he will be stretching it across that half an hour marker, and he will be able to pull off the one stop. And that's of course given that he doesn't cock it up somewhere along the way, but he is one of the most consistent drivers of this series. Joe of the Fire, Joe Witt, here on YouTube, and that's of course a given name to the Witty Professor. He is a bit of an Alan Prost when it comes to his approach to the car setups, known for spending quite numerous hours testing. So and it's paying off. Fast driver indeed, talented and consistent. And that's what wins you championships. Now we have a battle for second position, as Armored Core is now free of his damage. We could see him running a very good pace indeed, but I do believe it'll be difficult for him to do anything about Joe of the Fire, even though they are running quite a lot faster at the moment, at least, than the leading car. But they are, mind you, also on brand fresh tires. And I think they will be running on a two-stop as Armored Core goes wide in turn 1. Oh, and that's a huge one for Armored Core. And that is what that is straight up a rage quit. Nothing more, nothing less from the young American. He can take no more. And it's left Martin Pfeiffer in second. Oh, that's not what we wanted to see for Armored Core. But poor luck. Getting wide and then completely losing it. And for Martin Pfeiffer to be running in second position, despite of his previous accident from a couple of laps ago only, despite having to do well, a third of a lap with heavy engine damage and everything. He's managed to still have just under 10 seconds down to Jim. And Jim in the BWT, very much a pink Ford GT. Best water technologies. If you don't want chalk in your water. Also, off Apple running 4th position. It's impressive stuff from the Nukeshot Motorsports owner. Of course, Sirius founder and organizer here of the Nukeshot Endurance Series as well. That's almost self-explanatory, I think. Splurge is in 5th. It's Guga's 6th. Only a couple of seconds behind the Brit in front in the McLaren F1 GTR. And welcome to Armored Core. Sad to see you leave. But of course, poor luck. And it was my impression that you actually liked that Peugeot, but yeah, what do you know? Anyway, Joe of the Fire entering the pits as we've just crossed the half the race gone marker, and he does so with a single liter of fuel left in his tank. So the witty professor playing it out to perfection. Now he just needs a full load of fuel, pretty much, to be sure and certain. And let's see, I think he'd be sure to exit the pits in the lead. He very much does, and he does with a healthy gap down to Martin Pfeiffersen, still running 2nd. Now pretty much unchallenged. Let's see what the gap is up to Joe of the Fire. It's 14 seconds. Seems to be what he lost on that crash. So that's actually not that bad in the end. I would expect his laps in between to have been faster as well. Although Martin Pfeiffersen might just have troubles making both tires and fuel last him till the end of the race. Let us see how it develops. And evening to Stevie as well. Nice to see you. And I hope everything is going well on your part. Of course, Stevie, the people's champion, as we like to call him. Recent participant in the IGTL. 3 hours at Autopolis. Very, very tough competition indeed. And won by a very, very certain Nicolas Rubelar, who in turn was also the winner for a flat-out threat at the IGTL 3 hours of Autopolis. So, driver who's proven his pace here on the channel, going on to win a major GT League event in the World Tour. That's nice to see. And yes, Armored Core, you dropped 3-4 places. And Bambi, well, I think as a broadcaster, I have to agree that I don't like to see the field thinning out. And though I do understand the frustration, we always encourage our drivers in these series to keep on running, to keep on going. You never know what good racing might pop out later on here off Apple. 4th position still. He's lost a bit of time to Jim, who's now up into the podium position, so looking really good for him indeed. Splurge, as mentioned, still in 5th. CJ now up into 6th. It's Sam Vettel in the Lexus RCF, who's very much flown under the radar. He's running 7th position at the moment as he goes wide and just about the same place as Martin lost it a couple of laps ago. He was very close, you could see, to making that exactly same mistake. And Stevie, I'm quite well, apart from the fact that my PC, not my laptop, but my gaming PC died on me today. Went into boot loop. It wouldn't reinstall Windows, and it's I think the hard disk is gone or something, but it's a big bummer. I've been playing Assetto Corsa on it for just over a week, and I'm having good fun with it, so yeah, that's a shame. Gugas, as mentioned before, in 8th. It's Wake CU in the Warp Speed Porsche in 9th. It's Fushidara in 10th. GRM Bandit running 11th. It's John for Games in the other of the two Astons, the teammate of Martin. He's down in 12th, and then Mika in 13th. So not the best of racing as well or not the best of races for the Rebellion TVR Jags. And of course, a very good evening to everyone who's joined us here mid-race. You've tuned in for the Nuke Shot Endurance Series, 1 hour of Croissant of Saint Croix. The special event here between seasons 4 and 5 is what we are at the moment. And Joe of the Fire is leading comfortably by around 9 seconds down to Martin Vijversen, who has had a big accident and who's actually managed to claw back a couple of seconds and is now on his personal best lap so far. So not over yet entirely, even though it is gonna be very hard. Oh, he lost it here before. This time he keeps it under control, keeps it fast. Well done there. Running third and having run a very, very steady, smooth race so far, it's Jim in another of the Ford GTs. CJ now up into 4th position. That's strong job from him. And in 5th, of course, Off Apple. In 6th, it's Splurge in that lovely new, or it's not new, but it's a new addition to the game, the McLaren F1 GTR. Of course, returning from previous installments of the Gran Turismo series. But I have to say that they've made it sound very nice here in GT Sport. It's definitely one of the better sounding cars as that V12 roars by. CJ, yeah, I must admit he's done a brilliant job of moving up through the field, and even not having had the smoothest of races himself. He's now on a purple lap, so let's see if the Beetle is capable of smashing in a fastest lap. It's clean track, it's clean air in front of CJ. And he needs some fast laps because he's got 28 seconds to make up to Jim in 3rd position at the moment. It's looking strong for CJ, getting CJ wide on the exit. I was about to say Joe of the Fire having put a little bit of time back into Martin Vijversen. He's running consistently. Oh, somebody has a spin. And that's right in front of Joe of the Fire. And that is John for Games. And the second of the two Astons. And there it is. Oh, yeah. That's another way to get around and to turn the car around. Just park it back against the wall. Joe of the Fire is looking very, very consistent indeed. Martin Vijversen, 2nd position. He's losing a bit of time yet again. And the question is if he's pushed too far or if he's just scrubbing off the penalty this time. It's a little bit difficult to know, but he'll be catching up to his teammate shortly, who's running with damage. And probably will be no problem, I imagine, getting past. Oh, as I say, that is very, very close to being an absolute takeout there. Let's have another look at that hair-raising moment as John for Games somehow almost took out his teammate. Look at that. That almost looked intentional. Now back with CJ. Oh, he has gained buckloads of time on Jim in front. He's gained 5 seconds since last time we checked. It's been about a lap since that. He's been running on a brilliant pace indeed. He's put in the fastest lap of the race so far. The Mad Greek is really on fire here for the end of the race as we enter the last third of proceedings here. 20 minutes or 19 minutes now it is to go of racing here. So it does look like Joe of the Fire is gonna run away with it unless he has some kind of moment as well. Off Apple, 5th position for him, 7.5 seconds down to Splurge in 6th. It's the Warp Speed Wake in 7th. It's Gugas, the Portuguese, in 8th at the moment. In front of Semfettel in 9th. It's still Fushidara 10th. GRM Bandit 11th. It's Mika 12th and John for Games in 13th, and it's GRM Bandit really putting on the pressure to Fushidara here in the battle for 10th place. Let's see if John for Games can make his way up into the top 10. Or John for Games is of course GRM Bandit, the Bandito Dorito himself. Let's see if he's just gonna try a cutback, but a little bit of flashing back and forth. These two are very close indeed. So let's hop back on board. Time for Wang Cam from 10th place. Boo Fushidara, that massive AMG Wang. That really is Wang Cam indeed. It's maybe the most wangy of the Wang Cams we've seen so far. So it's got a bed as a hood, and it's got a wang at the back. So Boo Fushidara doing a good job of keeping GRM Bandit behind him so far. Just as I say that, he gets a little bit deep into that corner and allows Bandit to get very close. Dorito doesn't seem to be able to get close enough, though in turn unable to do something about it really. And here is Martin Fagersen in for that second pit stop of his. Just gonna ensure that he can make it all the way to the end of the race. And given that Joe of the Fire isn't gonna be in for any more pit stops, it looks to be given that he's going to be taking the race win here with just over 15 minutes left of racing here. Jim in for his last stop. And that's going to I was just about to say that's gonna diminish the gap down to CJ, but he's also entering the pits for a stop here. So let's see how they all come out. There might still be a lot of stuff to play for. The Aston of Martin Fabelhausen has been through a little bit of an ordeal. It had a big contact with the wall earlier in the race. Oh, Splurge and CJ is gonna be really close between him, but I think Splurge just had to back off. Not to come plowing into the rear end of the Mad Greek there. Gugas entering the pits for fresh tires, plenty of fuel in the car. Sam Vettel entering the pits as well. Probably for a set of softs, I would imagine. And let's see what Gugas gets. Gugas gets super soft, Sam Vettel gets soft, and they're very close to one another as well as they exit the pit lane. Joe of the Fire now half a minute up on Martin Fabelhausen. So the witty professor has thought out a plan, and that plan is being carried out, so far at least, to absolute perfection. Martin Fabelhausen, who has really had the pace, but he's had that big moment, threw off his strategy, and it's now cost him to have an extra pit stop, since he was forced to go in 5 or 6 minutes or so early on what he wanted to do in the beaten up Chem Hatch Reaver Aston Martin. Jim in 3rd position. He's been running strongly. He's got a 9.5 second advantage down to Off Apple in 4th. But mind you, Off Apple is on worn rubber at the moment. I think he might have to pit in yet again, though I'm not entirely sure about that. But Jim, of course, on course for a podium place. Of course, on course for a podium place. That's a bit of a dirtinism, I guess. Let's see, CJ, he did come out the pit lane in front of Splurge, and he's now hunting down Off Apple in front. He's 2 seconds behind. I think that time is gonna fly away quickly because of the fresh rubber and indeed also the skills of the Mad Greek. He's a fast driver indeed. Oh, as Off Apple has a big moment there. CJ also scrapes the outside wall. But you see the 10th falling off of the advantage here. In the meanwhile, Bandit has gotten past Fujidara and he's up into 10th position. And just have a look if it's anything we can catch. No, it's most certainly not. But you can't have one set of eyes at 2 places. That's a bit of a shame. Wish I could. It would be nice. Still 3rd running there, Jim. Oh, was he catch that inside curb, or was it just a penalty for extending on the outside? That might also be a possibility. Now CJ is within a second of Off Apple as we go over to Wang Cam. The Nuke Shot car here, sponsored by the incredibly named Atomic Interjectables. I wonder what that even is. Oh, CJ going way wide, just managing to keep that under control, but carrying the speed nonetheless. We are on board with the Mad Greek now as he's really applying the pressure to the rear end of Apple. I think he gets the exit this time around, though he's shut out on the outside. And that's a bit of a Rosberg squeeze, and that's well defended. For round 1, at least for Off Apple, there's CJ now glued to the bumper of that Toyota in front. He's gonna send it. Nope. It's gonna be cut off there. Both drivers with a wheel or 2 onto the grass there, but managing to keep it tidy in the end. In the battle for 4th position here. Now this long straight, CJ with the slipstream. And this time he's just gonna cruise around the outside of Off Apple. and left the Brit chanceless to defend. And let's see if he can keep up with the Greek, given the pace that he gained on him by when he was behind. I'd be surprised. Jim still running his penalty. We're closing in on the final 10 minutes of racing. It seems the warp speed Porsche of Wake CU has made its way up into 7th position. But it's hard for me to judge on how it's done and how it looks and all that. It just looks strange. Sam Vettel and Guga still close to one another as well. It's just about a second. It's GRM Bandit. He's down in 10th. He's got a 13.2 second advantage or disadvantage to make up to those two drivers in front. I don't think he's going to be able to pull that off. Mika has now gotten in front of John for Games, and he's done so by quite a margin indeed. And that is now CJ coming up to lap the Dutchman, the second of the two Aston Martins. And Joe of the Fire, and you can see he's just thinking about keeping it composed all the way to the line. No need to pressure or no need to push any harder than necessarily he does. He is still pushing to some degree, it seems, but Martin Pfeiffersen has at least pulled back, well, almost 5 seconds. And Martin also tipping off CJ for fastest lap of the race. He's now broken into the 2:58s. So that is fast stuff indeed. Good bit of spread between the top 4 here at the moment. I think our best chance of a battle is further down. Is Off-Apple, who's just gotten his way past John for Games. You can see the McLaren of Splurge in the background. Oh, and Bandit's in the pits. Bandit's in for his final stop. And he's left it late. And let's see where that's going to release him. He's going to be behind Fushidara once more, that's for sure. No, he's going to be just behind Fushidara, actually. As it looked to me, he was up the road, but he most certainly weren't. And this is going to be close stuff for P10 yet again. And gives us another excuse to go to the Wang Cam of the AMG GT3. And that in turn also must mean that Fushidara is also on fresh rubber, I think. And these two seem very well matched on pace. Bit of flashing here from Bandit, who's really trying to apply the pressure. It might also be the DS4 flashing from... actually don't know how you flash on the DS4. That's how little I've played GT Sport on the pad. Perhaps I should do it a bit more. Here is Bandit is looking to the inside, down towards this left-hander. Is he going to be able to make the pass stick? I think he is. That's a great move from GRM Bandit. Let's have another look at it. Yeah, he insistently puts himself on what becomes the inside after that kink. And then nicely executed braking point there. And he's immediately put in a gap to Fushidara there. So looks set for a top 10 position here. A nice one from GRM Bandit. Martin is continuing to eat his way into the advantage of Joe of the Fire. But with that crash and skewered pit strategy of Martin, it's going to be a little too late, even though he's had the pace all the race through pretty much. It's been a very strong display from the Dutchman, aside from that single big incident. Getting more engine damage and losing, aside from the pit stop, and losing about 14 seconds in that situation. Joe of the Fire has done so well. He's really been on point. He's been the driver he's known to be very much. He's a dangerous man to give a lead in any sort of situation. And he won here last time we had the 1 hour of St. Croix between seasons 3 and 4. Which is in turn the first time we had this event. So it's looking set for another one. Now 5 minutes of racing left for Joe of the Fire. That's going to be 2 more laps. So 21 laps of racing it's going to be. As mentioned before, Jim still holding on to that 3rd position, but look right in behind. It's the Mad Greek CJ himself, who's now appearing in the mirrors of Jim here for the last couple of laps. And this might get really intense for that last podium spot. And CJ has done an insane job to actually catch up to Jim, because that was a big advantage. He was looking to close something like a half a minute gap over the distance of the last stint here. He's done so. And that's incredibly impressive indeed. So let's go on board with the Mad Greek. That pace advantage is huge. We're seeing Jim just not wanting to fight it out whatsoever, or what? CJ sending it into turn 1. And that was that. He's passed up into 3rd. And do remember, ladies and gentlemen, CJ, who started last on the grid. Oh, now he's gonna be able to come back from Jim. But it's not enough. Also with a little bit of ghosting, thanks to the penalty he's running with at the moment. Jim, who would be wishing that the race was just 5 minutes shorter, I think, so he could have grabbed that 3rd place. But it is saying that 3rd place CJ is 1 minute and 11 seconds down on front runner Joe of the Fire. That in turn is of course 51 seconds up to Martin Favhuisen in 2nd. And Jim, just quickly losing out on time to CJ. It's Apple here, 5th position still. It's been running strongly so far, but Splurge, who was 7.5 seconds down at some point, seems to be closing the gap. And it might just be close at the end anyways between the two. But it will of course require Splurge to keep on eating into the advantage of his fellow Brit in front. Warp Speed Wake is warp speeding along like he's been doing pretty much all race. Still in 8th, it's Sem Vettel, who's now put some distance into Gugas in that battle for 8th position. Gugas now running 9th. Bandit, as we saw before, in 10th. He's also extended a little bit down to Fushidara. And then there's a big gap down to Mika and John for Games running the 2 last positions and the 2 cars. The 2 last cars remaining in the race, of course, we had 15 cars starting. So the penultimate lap it is for Joe of the Fire now. He might be running some kind of fuel saving. in order to make that one-stop work, because really seeing Martin Fagersen pushing into that advantage, really gaining territory here towards the end of the race. Of course, also on several occasions setting the fastest lap of the race. It's been a competition between CJ and Martin, it seems, for fastest lap, but impressive pace from the Dutchman is what we've seen here today. And he would most certainly have had been a big handful for Joe of the Fire had it not been for his mid-race accident, because he was on course to run a one-stop strategy just like Joe of the Fire. Having lost some time early on in the race, he was really picking up the pace as he was having a crash. He was actually just getting close to that magical 1 second mark when you can catch the slipstream and really start gaining. And then he went off to the left-hand side of the track and hit the wall hard indeed. Right in this position, right in this place actually is where he had his accident. He cut the grass to the right of the chicane and went over across the track to the left, hit the wall. As mentioned before, hard with the front of the car. You can still see the scars that it's bearing. And that inflicted some major engine damage to the car of Martin Fagersen. Anyways, Sam Vettel has crossed the line now, a lap down, or with a lap less completed. And that means that we'll be seeing positions from 8th and downwards being settled the next time they get around here. It's GRM Bandit. He's going to take 10th position in front of Fushidara. And it's going to be Mika for 12th. And it's going to be... John for Games, of course, for 13th. And one thing they could fix would be that everybody else, when they're not lapped, they should get to complete that last lap as well, instead of being noted as being lapped. Here, Joe of the Fire is about to cross the line for a brilliant win for the second consecutive running of the 1 hour of St. Croix here. Big congratulations to the witty professor, taking home a commanding victory, really keeping it clean on another level, pulling off the one stop. Martin Fagersen home for second position. Strong one indeed. Shame about Armored Core, who was also up there putting in the strong performances here. CJ really pushing along. He might be going for that fastest lap, but he is gonna take third position, unless he really has a a big moment. And here with one corner to go, you would expect him to be able to make it. And it's gonna be Crazy John is here in the Olympiacos liveried Beetle Group 3 car. He's gonna take a podium place with all the trouble he's been through, starting from last position. That is nice work indeed. Jim in the end, bad luck for him. It was looking like a podium for so long. It's gonna be fourth place for him. Off Apple Series Organizer, he's gonna come home for fifth position and a top 5 place. That's pretty decent. I think he will be happy with that in the end. Splurge coming home for 6th. Or he might actually in the end finish 7th. Let's see if Warp Speed Wake's gonna make it across. Oh, he's not, because he's warp speeding, and there he is, coming home for 7th and last of the drivers to cross the line. So Joe of the Fire taking the win here from the Nuke Shot Endurance Series 1 hour of St. Croix. It has, of course, been a pleasure having you all along, and yet again, big congratulations to our winner. He holds up the trophy. The trophy. F's for Splurge. F's for F for Gentleman Racing as well. F's for Armored Core. As for those drivers who had their share of bad luck throughout this race, and that could be said to be quite a number of the drivers actually. Anyways, it's been a great pleasure having you all along here for our broadcast of this race. If you haven't already, smash the like button if you like our content, if you like the video, and if you find us worthy of such, do also hit the subscribe button. And we'll be back here on Tuesday with another special event, this time organized by the TSR boys. We'll be going to the Nürburgring 24-hour layout for the McLaren F1 GTR Cup. It's going to be a one-off event. And then, of course, running our regular schedule. So Project Cars on AOR GT3 League on Wednesday, and Dirt and Rally on Thursday. And with that said, I think all there is left to say for me is that it has been a great pleasure having you all along. Of course, I am DirtenDK. You've been watching Have the Race Gone. And with that said, well, until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.